All right, here we go. Attendees. Yeah, she turned off her screen. It'll be.
I can turn it back on.
Hi, I was talking to someone else in my office. Yeah, it'll be fine. For those who have already joined the webinar, we're going to get started in a few minutes. We're just waiting for other folks to show up. All right, I think we're going to get started today. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for attending today's webinar as a part of Chagrin River Watershed's Chagrin River Watershed Partners Winter Webinar Series for the 2023 to 2024 season. My name is Chris Fian. I am an AmeriCorps service member serving as the Watershed Steward at Chagrin River Watershed Partners. This is the second webinar as a part of our series where CRWP partners with environmental professionals to deliver educational presentations to other interested professionals and members of the public. We have been and will continue to promote the series through our e-newsletter, social media pages, and our website. If you're interested in learning more about the series, feel free to check out our website and sign up for more webinars that we have scheduled for the next few months. If you have questions, feel free to type into the chat box as we go, and we can cover these questions at the end of the presentation during the Q&A session. Just to let you know, today's presentation is being recorded and will eventually be uploaded to our YouTube page. And in my follow-up email, I will include a link to this recording so you can review it at any time. In addition, I will also include a survey that helps Chagrin River Watershed Partners prepare high-quality webinars for the public and environmental field at large. A PDF file of today's presentation should be available on the GoToWebinar link and will also be uploaded to our website in the coming days. For today's webinar, Sam Tank from the Great Lakes Commission will present on Phragmites in the Great Lakes Basin and the Great Lakes Commission's work in the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative. Sam's presentation will cover the collaborative's efforts in combating invasive Phragmites and the best adaptive management practices throughout the Great Lakes region. And yeah, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Sam, and please everyone welcome Sam.
Thanks so much, Chris, and thanks for inviting me to participate in today's webinar series. I'm glad to be here today. Like Chris mentioned, I am a project manager out of the Great Lakes Commission, and we're located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. However, the Commission is meant to serve all of the Great Lakes region, so all 8 Great Lakes states, including Ohio, and the 2 provinces in Canada with Great Lakes rights. So One of my responsibilities at the Commission is helping to coordinate the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative and some of its associated programming. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about Phragmites in the Great Lakes and then some of the resources that we have that are available to you. So not knowing the audience of this group, I'm guessing everyone is familiar with Phragmites, but I will spend just a little bit of time giving some background on this plant. So Phragmites australis, subspecies australis, is an invasive aquatic wetland plant. Although it is aquatic, it does grow quite readily in just moist terrestrial environments as well. You can see from these images that the plant can grow many meters tall, and it can really just form a dense near monoculture within an area. And it's not just a problem within the Great Lakes. It is not just a problem in Michigan or Ohio. This is a national and binational issue that we're facing in North America. You can see from this map that I pulled from EdMaps just a couple of days ago on the 15th, showing invasive Phragmites reports throughout North America, that there isn't a state that it has not been reported in within the continental United States. And it also is quite prevalent in Ontario and some of the other provinces as well. Phragmites has been here for a couple hundred years now. It actually invaded in the eastern part of the United States and has been slowly making its way south and then to the west and north as well. One of my favorite stories, and it's just an anecdote, I don't necessarily think that this is the true point of introduction, but Phragmites is apparently used for elephant bedding and thus was moved around as part of the circus. But more realistically, it was probably brought over many times for a variety of reasons. Most likely one of the early introductions came from ship ballast material. So before they used water in ships for ballast, they used to use soil in plants. And so it likely was brought over, at least through that, potentially some other trade uses as well. So now that it's here, Phragmites has a real propensity to spread and invade new areas. It can spread through seed dispersal, and so those fluffy seed heads, those inflorescences at the top, they can have thousands of seeds on them, and those can spread via wind dispersal. They can get tangled up on clothing if someone is walking through a stand. If there's construction or management in an area, or mowing, they can get stuck to pieces of equipment and moved that way. And obviously wildlife can transport them as well. Phragmites is a grass, and like all grasses, most of its biomass is going to be underground. And this picture doesn't really show it, but as much as you see above ground, you're going to see even more below ground in that root and rhizome network. And these rhizomes can travel quite a distance each year. And so these shooting out under the surface, or sometimes you even see them over the surface. I've seen them growing over sidewalks before even, in really heavily impervious surfaces, or up through concrete even sometimes. So these can start new populations. And the other way that Phragmites can spread is actually from the plant itself. The plant has these nodules on it, on the stem, and those can sprout roots and form a new plant as well. So this plant is really good at establishing new areas, which is one of the qualities that makes it such a successful invader. So there is a native variety of Phragmites that I do want to mention, and that is not the culprit. That is not what's causing harm. When you see native Phragmites, It's going to look pretty similar to non-native Phragmites. However, there are a couple of distinguishing features. These are really just rules of thumb, but all rules can be broken. So I wouldn't rely just on these to distinguish between native and non-native populations. So right here, we're looking at the stems. The stems for native usually have some candy striping where there are purple and like a lighter green or white color. You're not necessarily going to see that on the invasive variety. There's also some fungal pathogens that appeared to impact differently on the native and non-native strands of Phragmites. And so if you see these kind of nice black little dots or squares, it's usually a fungal pathogen that only targets the native variety and not the non-native. Phragmites does look like other grasses a lot of times as well. Especially when it's younger, it can look like reed canary grass. One way that's pretty easy to distinguish is by looking at the ligules. And so you can see here's the stem, and then there's a leaf sheath. And right at the base of the leaf sheath, there's these things called ligules, and they're kind of like little fine hairs. And so here's a picture of it right here on the non-native. These ligules are going to be maybe a couple of millimeters in length, not that big, but they're going to look like fine silken hairs. If you peel back other grasses, you're going to find that it's going to be a waxy ligule. And if you see a waxy ligule, then it's not Phragmites. So that's a good way to tell. Here is an image showing the seed heads or the inflorescences between native and the non-native variety. So the native is going to be a lot more wispy, less seeds. Non-native usually is much more full and robust, has more seeds. So I mentioned those ligules. You can see that they're measurably smaller on the native versus the non-native. I'm not able to distinguish them this way. This is harder to do oftentimes because you have to get out there with a really fine scale measurement. The color variation is often pretty striking. Non-native has more blue-green color and the native is more green. But like I said, there's really just, those are rules of thumb, so I wouldn't trust those on a one-off. The surefire way to tell is to do genetic analysis, and there are some labs within the Great Lakes that are doing this. And so if you're interested in that, reach out to me and I'd be happy to put you in contact. So the native variety, and I didn't mention that, is Phragmites australis subspecies americanus. There are a couple other subspecies within the United States, at least one other, but I'm going to focus on the non-native one today. So the subspecies australis. You will see, I did want to quickly introduce you to Fraggy. This is our native Phragmites mascot, so he's subspecies americanus. You'll see him popping in throughout our presentation today. So now you know a little bit more about how to identify Phragmites, what it looks like potentially. I wanted to talk about some of the impacts. When I think about impacts, I think about them in three different ways. So impacts to water, impacts to wildlife, and impacts to people, to our way of life. So water impacts, like I said, this is a mainly wetland plant. So these dense stands, they require a lot of water. So they can actually retain water, reduce water levels, and even alter flows in some drainage environments. And they readily outcompete native wetland plants as well. For wildlife, dense stands aren't really suitable habitat for a lot of our reptile and amphibian species. You can see in this image, I was walking through a patch in Southeast Michigan, and we found a couple turtles that weren't able to get out of some of these patches. In the large patches, they support fewer insect species, which are really critical for migratory or marsh nesting birds as well. And then for us, so when I communicate with the public about Phragmites, this is often what I focus on. It's hard to kind of tell the value of, oh, you know, this one turtle didn't make it in this patch versus, oh, Phragmites is a fire hazard, and if you have it growing near your house, this could potentially be dangerous for you or your family. So these are some ways that I communicate it with the public. Decreased property values, that's also a big one. So there was a study a number of years ago that showed if you had invasive Phragmites within a certain proximity to your property, it actually decreased your home value. There's other safety issues. It can block roadsides, fire hydrants, right of ways. It can break through concrete. We have near me in Michigan this underground freeway, and it's about, I don't know, maybe 20 feet down the sides are, and they're just all concrete. And I've seen Phragmites in multiple places growing up 16, 20 feet down, all concrete, totally impervious, breaking through. And then also Phragmites can obstruct our access to recreational activities as well. And so if you have a house on a lake or you have a pond on your property, it can really impede access or view lines. So these are just some of the ways that Phragmites is impactful to both us and to the ecosystem, and why in 2012 we formed a partnership to link people, information, and action, what we're calling the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative. In probably 2011, partners from the Great Lakes Commission and U.S. Geological Survey, or USGS, came together, and they decided that we needed a way to inform Phragmites management that was going to look at a regional scale, not just this site-by-site basis. Like that map I showed earlier, Phragmites isn't this localized issue, it's this wide-reaching binational issue. And so we wanted a way to look at this on a larger scale. And the mission of the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative is to establish a communication network among stakeholders across the region, and then really serve as this resource center for biology, management, and science. So we have a governance structure for the collaborative. There's a core team that's made up of partners from USGS and the Great Lakes Commission. And then we have an advisory committee, and here are some of the members of our advisory committee on the screen. And this advisory committee is meant to be a cross-section of binational experts who engage with non-native Phragmites. And then we have the broader Phragmites community that's part of the collaborative. And so this is anyone who is either impacted by or trying to impact non-native Phragmites, and this would be through management, research, concerned citizens. So I'd say everyone on this call, welcome. You didn't know it necessarily, but you are members of the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative. So I do want to just take a second and explain what a collaborative is, because I'm going to use this term a lot. This image here shows the collaboration continuum. And so if we look over on the left side of the screen, you can see that when you're not collaborating, the kind of like extreme is you're competing, right? And so competing for resources, competing for partnerships. But then you go to the other side, and then you come to collaborate and integrate. And this is where we are at, and this is what we're trying to do. We have a lot of trust, and we have a lot of cohesion with our partners. So we are trying to create this long-term interaction that's based on a shared mission, goals, decision-making, and shared resources. And we coordinate the collaborative under something called collective impact. And I won't spend too much time on this, but I did want to just briefly introduce it. So there's 5 conditions of collective impact. There's a neutral backbone organization, and that's the Great Lakes Commission, who serves as that. There's internal and external open lines of continuous communication, a shared vision and approach. And this usually takes the form of a common agenda, a shared system of measurements, and some outlined mutually reinforcing activities as well. And we use this path of collective impact to get from all of these root causes, all of these issues that we're currently facing with Phragmites, to our long-term vision. And that vision is a Great Lakes ecosystem that's not degraded by non-native Phragmites. And so we have a long way to go to get there, but we've made some good strides, and we have a lot of resources that I'd like to highlight now. So in fall of 2020, we took our kind of first big step to aligning our goals as this collaborative network. We published our common agenda. The common agenda is really meant to be a shared understanding of gaps and problem areas surrounding Phragmites, and it's meant to highlight the areas and strategies that we're working towards or that we wish we could work towards. The common agenda is broken up into 4 focus areas, and then there's a number of member strategies. So this is available on our website, and I'll share the link many times, including, I believe, on the next slide. Yep, there it is. So if you haven't checked out our website, I'd really encourage you to. There's been a lot of products developed over the last, I guess we're coming up on 11, 12 years at this point of the collaborative, that have supported the work that we've outlined in the common agenda, or our initiatives that have been outlined in the common agenda. So we have a website, and this isn't just, hey, we're the collaborative, this is what the collaborative is. That it includes a ton of resources. So if you're looking for identification guides, if you're looking for mapping resources, if you're looking for the latest research, we have all of these things and more. We also do have our own webinar series. I think we're up to 54 webinars that you can find archived on our website. We also have maps and lists of regional partners. So if you're looking for Phragmites experts, we have that information available to the public as well. We also have a listserv where people can share information and ask questions. We have a newsletter that comes out bi-weekly. I would really recommend subscribing to that, if only for the little silly fake headline that we have. You can actually see, I don't know if the screen's big enough, but you can see we send out these goofy little headlines every other week. And so it's worth just subscribing for that, but there's a lot of other good information in there as well, including a quarterly research roundup. So lots of good resources for the collaborative. If you get a chance, go to the website, greatlakesphragmites.net. But now I want to shift focus and talk about one of our biggest initiatives under the collaborative, and hopefully tell you why you should participate in it. So a big component of the work that we do is to engage with Phragmites managers through the Phragmites Adaptive Management Framework, or PAMF, as I'm going to call it. So PAMF is a program that began in 2016. It was kind of under development, and it was launched in 2017. And so I'm going to spend most of the rest of my time walking through this program and telling you a little bit more about it. So I'll start with the kind of why behind this. Sorry, my slides keep wanting to advance on their own. So that we all have this common goal in mind, and that is improved Phragmites management success. But what we were finding is that all of the techniques that we were using, whether it be herbicide, mechanical, hydrologic manipulation, prescribed burning, all of these really resource intensive techniques are going to have, or we're having, different levels of effectiveness given specific site conditions or how they were implemented. And there wasn't a lot of understanding of why. So there was a high degree of uncertainty and not a really good understanding of what our best approaches were to controlling Phragmites. Like I said, it's been here for a couple hundred years at this point. It's really become a problem over the last couple of decades with land use changes and more urbanization, more sprawl. And we've been trying to control it for, in some areas, 20 plus years with really variable success. But when managers are having a lot of success, there isn't always really good information or knowledge sharing. And we found that even experts who have been controlling or working with Phragmites for years disagreed on the best management approaches. So we tried to ask ourselves, okay, how can we improve Phragmites management? We needed to find something, an approach that worked at a system scale. So not this one plot of land or one jurisdiction or one state, but something that worked regionally. We wanted to reduce the trial and error approach to management. So, okay, cutting it didn't work, so plan B is spraying and plan C is flooding. That's just using a lot of resources without really understanding how they're going to effectively control the problem. And then understanding the differences that we were seeing with specific site characteristics and timing as well. So we decided that ways to improve this program and to kind of check all of these boxes was going to be implementing an adaptive management program. And so this is what PAMF looks like from the participant perspective, and I'll walk through it in just a little bit. But quickly, I want to define what adaptive management is. So we are using the Department of the Interior's definition of adaptive management. So that's a structured approach to decision-making that emphasizes accountability and explicitness in decision-making. So what that really means is that we have a process to make decisions, to implement the program, and then to evaluate it and adjust based on what we've learned from the previous cycle. And so this is an iterative process. It happens on an annual basis within the program. And this really provides us with an intentional or systematic way to learn from the management that's happening out on the landscape. And when adaptive management is done correctly, some of the things that come out of it are a clear way to learn, reduced uncertainty, improved programmatic efficiency and efficacy, and the knowledge sharing. So a lot of these things that we were missing. And the Phragmites Adaptive Management Framework is not only a adaptive management program, but it's also a participatory or citizen science program as well. I'll show a little more later, but this is a program that's meant to be available to anyone on the landscape who is wanting to manage or currently manage non-native Phragmites at any scale. And this really allows us to expand our reach. Having a participatory science program makes it more cost effective to implement and to gather data. The amount and variety of data that we can get and learn from is going to be much, much larger than if we were doing it on our own. And then there's also the added benefit of this collective learning and education engagement with the public. And so that's something that we're not only providing people with a resource and getting data from them, but we're also teaching them some new skills, some new information about invasive species and how to be good land stewards as well. There are some challenges with participatory science programs. They do require some baseline of training for participants, and then making them reproducible and keeping data quality high can be a challenge, but we've really intentionally designed the program to make sure that it's high quality data and that participants are collecting the appropriate data as well. And so this type of programming is fairly unique. So it's not just adaptive management, it's not just participatory or citizen scientist science, it's both. And so this really provides managers with a voice. It provides us with faster learning potential, and it provides more opportunities for knowledge sharing as well, and hopefully overall improving community resilience. So now I just want to walk through each of the steps in the Phragmites Adaptive Management Framework annual cycle. And so it starts with enrolling and then goes to monitoring, modeling, which happens internally, produces guidance, management on the ground, and starts over again with monitoring the next year. And so enrolling. So anyone who is interested in controlling Phragmites at any scale, like I said, can enroll a patch of Phragmites into PAMF. And so what this looks like is, if you can see this map that I have right in the upper right-hand corner, this would be, this is actually just a local park near us where we were doing kind of some test enrolling, but we went and we mapped out, and you can either use a GPS or there's a web tool that allows you to kind of draw a polygon onto a Google Earth surface. You can just define boundaries of a site of Phragmites that you have the ability and are willing to manage. And then you just answer a couple of questions on what's been done to Phragmites in the past and what are your management capabilities moving forward. So can you apply herbicide? Can you control water levels? Can you cut underwater? Some things like that. And this is all done on a website that we call the Web Hub, and this is where all of the PAMF data lives. And so enrollment can happen anytime during the year. I actually had someone enroll a site just the other week, even though Phragmites is in its dormant phase right now where it's not actively growing, but they're planning to manage it coming next year. And then part of PAMF is annual monitoring. And so what this monitoring activity does is it tells us the kind of before and after state. So we want to get a sense of what does your site look like, how invaded is it, and what are some basic site characteristics. And so this requires participants to visit the management unit each July. They have a full month to collect this data, although it usually only takes a couple of hours, including navigating through the site. And so they take measurements on stem counts. And so they'll place this quarter-meter square quadrat down in 5 different locations, and they'll count how many stems are within the plots. This can be a little tricky when you have really old stands and you have a lot of standing dead biomass, but it usually isn't too bad. And then participants will use these calipers that we provide them, and they'll take 3 stem density measurements per quarter meter squared quadrat. So there's 5 sets of measurements that they're taking. They look for signs of stress, and then they evaluate the entire management unit and give an estimate of percent establishment. So how much of the management unit is established with live Phragmites stems. The procedures and the protocols, they're meant to be robust enough that the model can learn from it, but simple enough that you don't need, a master's degree to go out and conduct this. We do have a lot of training resources, and we do provide all participants with a PAMP monitoring kit, which gives them a quarter meter square quadrat, the vernier calipers, and then some other tools and cool swag like stickers of Fraggy, so that they have everything they need to go out and conduct the monitoring each year. So the monitoring information is also uploaded to the web hub, and once participants submit that data, we run it through our model that takes the management actions that have been used by other managers and the current invasion status for monitoring of all of the different management units, and it predicts it uses it to predict what is going to be the most effective way to control Phragmites within a site. And so you have this set of prior data, and so this is last year's data from everyone, and then you have if there are any management reports, and then that pre-post monitoring, and this is really what makes those predictions. We do optimize the model based on cost and some other factors, and so we try to provide guidance, and the model ideally does provide guidance to managers that is going to be the most cost effective as well as the most effective at controlling the Phragmites within their specific property. And so this guidance that goes out to participants, this is unique to each of our sites. So some people's guidance might look similar, but this is considering their specific monitoring reports and their specific restrictions based on what they can do. And so I'll walk you through what guidance looks like. So we have 16 different management combinations that PAMP is designed to learn from. And you can see that they're broken up into 3 categories. And so there's translocating, dormant, and growing. Translocating is referring to the fall. This is when the plants are mainly transporting all of that above ground sugars and resources down through the rhizomes for storage. And so this is usually the best time if you're going to do any sort of herbicide application that you would want to apply that. That's because the plants are already translocating or moving those sugars from the stem down to the rhizomes, and so they're more likely to move the herbicide down to the rhizomes and have a better impact then as well. Then there's the dormancy phase, which we're in right now, and that's when all of the above ground biomass has died off and the plant's activity is really quieted. There's not any growing going on. It's in just this kind of hibernation mode. And so the rhizomes are still alive underground, but all of that above ground biomass, it doesn't come back. The rhizomes put up new shoots each year in the growing phase. And growing happens, it depends on where you are in the basin. Usually you'll start seeing plants grow in May, and even potentially earlier, depending on where you are in the climate that year. And they'll usually keep growing through late summer when they go back into the translocating phase and start to senesce again. So that's why we have guidance for each of the 3 biological phases, because what works best during translocating doesn't necessarily work best during growing. And so of these 16 different management combinations, there's 10 different management actions. And so we have management actions that include herbicide, mechanical removal, hydrologic manipulation, and rest as well. And you might think, rest is an odd one to include. You can see that one of our management combinations is rest or do nothing all year long. And this isn't necessarily something that we recommend as the optimal guidance. This is more if participants aren't able to manage for a year, they can still provide us with data on what happens to that stand of Phragmites, because it is helpful to know how Phragmites responds to no management as well. And so that can also inform our learning efforts. So guidance goes out to managers in mid-August of each year, and it's meant to be implemented over the next 12 months. And so managers can either use the guidance that we've provided them and turn that into management actions, or they can implement other management actions if they see appropriate. So they're not, like obligated to use the guidance that we provide them. But then they tell us what they did in the form of 3 management reports, one for each of those biological phases that I went over. And then all management actions, whether they came from PAMF guidance or not, can be submitted through that web hub. And that allows us then to take those reports along with the monitoring reports that next July and input it into the model, and starts that entire process over again. So when we started this program in 2017, that first year, we had a model that was informed by expert opinion. And so all of those priors that we were working off of, it was just, what did experts expect to happen when we applied different management actions to the landscape? But as time goes on, we now have our PAMF predictive model that helps us to learn and understand what's happening. And so that model generates guidance. Participants then manage the land. Participants give us those monitoring and management action reports, and that informs the model again. And then we keep on learning. And so eventually what we'll end up with and what we have started to do is have management guidance that's going out to participants that's actually informed by field data. So remember, we used to have just expert opinion, and now we have actual data. And we have quite a few years of data at this point. Since we started in 2017, we have hundreds of observations that have gone to updating our learning model. And so we are moving away from this uncertainty with what's going to happen when different management actions are employed across the landscape to we have real participant data. And so that's going to continue to help us reduce uncertainty over time. And then eventually we'll have best management practices and hopefully really specific ones that are going to be applicable to all Great Lakes managers, whether they participate in PAMF or not. So some of the benefits of the program, there's that collective learning process. So it's managers are able to participate in this effort. They're able to contribute their data and make that management effort stretch that much further. Managers do receive management guidance, which can be a great benefit, especially if you're a smaller organization or agency and you don't have the Phragmites management plan already laid out. This can help inform what's going to be effective on your site. We provide you with a standard monitoring set of protocols and equipment, and so you can better keep track of how your management efforts are going. throughout the year. There's also the data and record storage. And so you don't have to keep the records yourself. We have them and provide annual reports to show how you're doing. And I'll show an example of that in just a second. This provides good opportunities for collaboration as well. We do have one of our features is you can see contact information for others participating in the program. And we encourage managers to reach out and get in contact with others who are within their area so that you can kind of leverage each other's work and opportunities and make a bigger impact that way. And then we provide annual summaries as well that do highlight the work that has been going on within the various management units that managers have. So who can participate? Well, anyone within the Great Lakes Basin, which is the kind of green blobby around the Great Lakes, or participating watersheds as well. And so I believe you guys are somewhere right up here on the shores of Lake Erie. So managers within the watershed or within the surrounding Great Lakes watersheds, more than welcome to participate, encouraged to participate if you're currently managing or planning to manage Phragmites. Here's just a quick map showing our current reach. So since the beginning of the program, we've had 299 different management units enrolled by 86 managers around the basin. Last year, we had 100 management units that were actively being managed, and that was by 28 managers. So we've had representation at some point, at least from all 8 Great Lakes states, and pretty good representation across Ontario as well. Here's just from last year. So you can see we had 5 management units in Ohio, but we're always looking to increase. Our most of our management units are coming from Ontario, which pretty big place, makes sense why we have a lot, and Michigan as well. Here's some of these additional kind of benefits to participating in PAMF. So each year we provide what we call annual management unit summaries, and this provides a really nice snapshot of how your management unit has changed based on the management that you've done in those monitoring reports that you've submitted. And so this is something that we actually worked with a funding agency, Sustainer Great Lakes, to provide input on. So if you are managing Phragmites off of a grant, this is a really nice grant reporting tool so that you don't have to necessarily do your own. We also have a lot of training resources and supporting resources. So lots of videos, lots of written guides, in-person training activities, in-person field assistance as well. And so I would just be on the lookout because we will likely have at least one in-person or virtual training opportunity within your area. And then we do have a self-paced training course that's available anytime, and that's at Moodle. So I'll happily provide Chris some of these links and resources. We can send them out in his follow-up email, as well as my contact information as well. So if you're wanting to get involved, but you think, well, I'm not really sure how it works, there's lots of resources and materials and trainings out there to help you get started. And I will just end with a quick plug for an opportunity that's coming soon in 2024. So you don't want to miss out on this. In 2024, PAMF, through the Great Lakes Commission, will starting to be awarding Phragmites managers who are able to participate in PAMF and utilize certain PAMF combinations with small grants. And so this will help boost the PAMF model and inform it with some of those underrepresented PAMF combinations, but also help regional managers fund their management activities on the landscape. So more to come. I suspect we'll probably be releasing that RFP within the next 3 months, but excited about that, and I'd really encourage everyone to apply for that funding opportunity when it comes about. And so thanks so much for letting me share my work with you today. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me at either phragmites@glc.org or pamf@glc.org. And then once again, here is the website, and I encourage you to check it out. So thanks so much. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Sam, for taking the time to present through our webinar series. I certainly learned a lot about the history of Phragmites in the Great Lakes and the twists and turns the management program has taken over the years. I um, I know I mentioned in the beginning to all of our attendees that there is a chat box for anyone to drop questions in. I'm not exactly sure if Sam can see them, so if anyone has questions, I can simply read them out loud. And of course, I'm sure Sam will be open to answering any. But Sam, just to give folks some time to come up with any. I have some questions for you you're if you're so kind to answer any. I was wondering, um, in order to be a part of the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative, does one have to does an organization have to pay dues on an annual basis, or is there any sort of entry fee, anything like that?
No, this is a federally funded program, and it's open to everyone to participate. And so
Hmm.
I should have said this, we work off of Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funds, and that's where actually the PAMP funding is coming from as well. So this program is federally funded, and we're meant to create these resource and networking opportunities for managers, for researchers, for anyone interested.
Hmm.
Those who serve on the advisory committee, they help steer the direction of the collaborative, but they don't pay dues, they just participate in meetings. And so anyone can participate in the collaborative and benefit from the resources, and there's no
Hmm.
cost.
I see. Okay, that's great to hear. So it doesn't sound like there's too many barriers for organizations to get involved in. That's great. Um, so this small grant program you spoke of at the way end, your plug, so to speak, about, for Phragmites managers, is that a new program for 2024? Is this the first year, in other words, where this is going to be a thing?
Yep, this is the first year, and so we're still drafting that initial RFP, trying
Yep.
to work out the kinks. This is new for us as well, but we're pretty excited. We're still trying to finalize our funding amounts as well, but more to come on that very soon. We have a wonderful task force that's helping us to develop that RFP, and then we'll be responsible for selecting the proposals to be awarded as well.
I see. And once that RFP is up and ready to go, will the Phragmites Collaborative send out an email or anything like that, like for those subscribed to your newsletter, for instance?
Yes, it will definitely go out and be shared through that. So definitely, if you're interested, sign up for the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative newsletter, and we will be promoting it through that and some of our partners as well.
Okay, all right, sounds good. And I for one will be signing up to this newsletter, so I will definitely look for that
Wonderful.
sometime in the spring. Yeah. Um, so with regards to this PAMF model that you all developed, I take it that was developed at the commission, the Great Lakes Commission?
It was actually USGS who developed it. So they
Oh,
provided
okay.
the scientific support for the
Hmm.
program, and we provide administrative support. But it's now being administered
See,
out of the Great Lakes Commission.
understood. Yeah. 2 weeks ago, we had a presentation with Dr. Kowalski from USGS. He presented on, yeah, he presented on coastal wetland restoration. He was like, "Yeah, I've been working on this Phragmites stuff. You guys should you guys should talk about it. So yeah, so that's no surprise, in other words, that the model came from him, well, from them.
Yeah.
That's cool. Um, all right. Well, I did have one last question. That was comparing and contrasting how native Phragmites um, interacts with plants on the landscape as opposed to invasive. I know you mentioned that invasive Phragmites, they form dense monocultures. They're not a great habitat for insects, and that has cascades for the whole food web. So I'm wondering, does native Phragmites do native plants, are they more adapted to its conditions? Do they form monocultures? Like, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, and so if you were to go look at a healthy wetland that has native
Mhm,
Phragmites in it, you would see plants, growing more sparsely. You might see some denser patches, but it's going to be interspersed with other plants as well.
mhm,
Their biomass that they leave on the ground each year is generally less, and so they're not really shading out or out competing other plants. They're kind of growing in harmony. And that increased biodiversity within the area, then plant biodiversity supports other biodiversity as well. And so there are
sure.
more habitat opportunities, more foraging opportunities for some of
Mhm,
our other native wildlife.
I see. Yeah, so you wouldn't expect to find these large monocultures of native Phragmites pretty much
Not
anywhere.
necessarily. No, you might see, small stands, a couple,
Hmm.
maybe 10 by 10 meters, but I
Sure,
wouldn't
sure,
expect to
sure.
see much more than that if it's native.
Understood. Gotcha. And yeah, those what do you call them? Inflorescence, I believe, like
Yep, the seed heads, yeah.
yeah, the seed heads. Yeah, they're much smaller for natives. Yeah, yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I'm always second guessing myself personally when I'm like looking at these large strands of Phragmites. I'm like, is that native? Is that invasive? And like, I know you were mentioning at the beginning, like how like there are these rules of thumb you can use to compare and contrast natives and invasives. But really, didn't you say in the beginning, really only genetic analysis can give you like a for sure, this is definitely not native here? Is that
Yeah.
pretty much, is that pretty much how
Yep,
it
and I've
goes?
seen it stump seasoned managers time and time
Yeah.
again. So it is something to be mindful of, and we obviously want to preserve the native variety on the landscape.
Yeah.
And so if you are planning to manage, I would encourage you to use some of those rules of thumb. And if you're uncertain,
Mhm.
then seek some genetic analysis, which, like I said, we have some contacts, and I'd be happy to share them with anyone who's interested.
Can you actually expand on that a little bit? Like, how available are these resources? Are they only available in certain parts of the basin? Like, how easy is it to get a genetic analysis of a Phragmites sample?
You take a couple leaf samples, put them in the
Yeah,
mail, and pay $25. That's pretty accessible to anyone who's
fair enough.
who's curious.
All right, fair enough. Well, that's good to know. All right. Well, I don't see, at least from my end, I don't see any questions dropped. Sam, did you by any
Nope.
chance get any? No.
Nope.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty much ready to wrap up here. Um, Sam, thank you so much for taking time to deliver this presentation today. I really enjoyed it. I'm sure our attendees gathered a lot from it. There definitely was much to cover. And for all of you, for all of those who are attending, just as a reminder, there was well, I will send out a follow-up email with a survey that I request everyone to fill out. CRWP really does appreciate that feedback. And yeah, we have more webinars coming up this winter, and much more in store for anyone who's interested during these winter months. So, Sam, thank you for your time, and I hope you have a nice day.
Thank you. Thanks so much for letting me share with you. And please reach out if you have any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Sam. Have a good one, everybody.